So in your bio, you mentioned that you wrote romance in secret for a long time before publishing. Why was it secret?
I think for the start, I was writing romance without even realizing I was writing romance. Like the very first romance I wrote was in eighth grade, and I have it, and it will never, ever, 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 ever see the light of day. But I had those when I wrote in high school. I was sick a lot when I was growing up, and we didn't have a lot of TV, so I would just spend my nights sitting up in my room writing on this old laptop my uncle gave me, and I would write all these crazy stories, and I loved it. And I was like, but that's for me, and so I kept it to myself, partly because I had a teacher who told me that I couldn't spell, so I would never be a writer. I know.
Well, they were clearly from 1917.
So I mean, I had other teachers after that who were like, no, you can still consider it. But I was like, no, I'll be a journalist. It's fine. So I really did. I just like kind of went through journalism and I kept writing as like my own secret outlet. And it really wasn't until me and my husband were married when I was like, I need to do something other than like repaint this deck for like the 50th time. So I started writing again. And the first book I wrote, it was like, it came to me in this like flood. And it was like 12 days of this like crazy, like,
Wow.
here we go. And it proved to myself that I could do it again. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to actually pursue this. Like, there's not something I want to be kept secret because it's a big part of me. And I feel like I wasn't being like very honest with myself for keeping it secret.
Yeah. I resonate with that. I started writing also when I was young, and I had this old laptop that my dad gave me, and I would spend my Saturday mornings just like writing my novels, which again, I didn't classify as romance, but looking
Yeah.
back, it's very clear to me why I became a romance novelist because I always just was interested in the love stories. So,
Yes. Yeah.
were you reading romance during this whole time?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't even reading romance. I didn't read my first romance until, gosh, I was in my 20s. I read Julia Quinn.
Okay.
But during that time, I was in love with Edith Wharton. So I was reading like a lot of classics,
Mm,
and Wuthering Heights, whether you love it or not, I adored that movie. Like
yeah.
a really bad obsession with that book in high school. Like there was just something about it, as like twisted and tortured as it was. It was just very like poetic, and I loved the angst of that story.
Yeah.
So I read a lot of classics during that time while I was trying to write without even realizing what I was writing.
Yeah. I also didn't read romance
Yeah.
until in my 20s. My first was, I think, Mary Balog. Was Julia Quinn your, like, is she your diehard? She's the author that influenced you most, or are there other authors that you feel like you emulate?
Meredith Duran is like my all-time. She and Joanna Shupe and Lisa Kleypas are they're my diehards.
Nice.
If you look in the back, oh, they're all their books. Or I have like multiple copies of their books in the back there. So yeah.
Yeah. And you don't write Regency, right? You write, these are like Victorian and Gilded Age books
So
that you write?
this series is Regency,
Okay.
but I do normally write late Victorian, Gilded Age. I have a Gilded Age series coming out this summer.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah.
What's the name of that for our readers?
Gilded Hearts, and the first book is Daring Proposal.
Okay, so in your bio, you say you lived in a Dutch castle.
Yes,
Please tell us more about that.
of course. So I went to Emerson College,
Classic.
and we were able to go over and live in this Dutch castle for a semester. And so I was really lucky to go live in this small Dutch town called Well and live in this castle. And it was amazing. I had like you could open your windows like a princess moment, and there were like swans and a moat.
Wow.
It was amazing. And then we would travel Europe every weekend. We'd have like 3 or 4 days off. So
Wow.
I got to go everywhere, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like any of that feeds the stories that you're writing?
I think a lot of that, yes. Yeah, it does. I miss traveling. I traveled a lot with my husband for a long time, and then we had kids, so we kind of like settled down for a little bit.
Yeah.
But we're starting to like slowly creep out of our little like nest and go back out and go adventure. So yeah, I think traveling is really important. And when I was there, I was studying art history at the time. So
Oh.
I was able to go see a lot of art, which also inspires a lot of my writing. So yeah.
Yeah. Would you say you're a visual? Like, do you do Pinterest boards and like character stuff?
So one of the first steps to a book when I write, before I draft, is Pinterest and then Spotify. I like build a list and I listen to that same playlist until the book is done, and then I never want to hear those songs ever again.
Yeah.
Um, so, but I'll listen to it like for hours and hours and hours and hours because it just like has like an emotion, right? And it
Yeah.
fuels the character and their story. So that's usually how I go about setting up character.